Hello, my name is Keith Haswell. I'm a professional astrologer with 40 years experience in the business and over 30,000 clients worldwide. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this first of my spiritual growth and personal growth videos. And this one is on the nature of love. What else would be the first of my spiritual growth and personal growth videos? Love, the most powerful force in the universe. And there's just so much there to learn about this, but we never got taught it. We never got taught what love was or how to do it by our parents or by our teachers or by our peers or our bosses. We never got taught how to do it. And so on this video I'm going to share with you some of the things that I've discovered along the way. Self-love is essential to our success in life and our happiness in life. One might think that God and Goddess are the source of love in the universe. That would be a natural conclusion to come to, but the most powerful truth that I have learned from my inner teachers, from my teachers on the inner side of life, is that God and Goddess are only an expression of an underlying principle of love which will forever remain nameless and will forever remain unknowable, even to God and Goddess. And that is absolutely a beautiful truth when you think about it. And I was so happy to know that God and Goddess are not at the end of a line where they've developed all that they can possibly develop in the way of consciousness and awareness and love and intelligence and power. To know that God and Goddess are also on a journey with us, becoming more ever of that underlying principle of love. The underlying principle of love is infinite love, and infinity can never be experienced. It can only be conceptualized. Now I know that I'm starting with some pretty heavy gear here, but I just wanted to share with you something right from the beginning about the nature of love and how it all functions in the universe. So God and Goddess are also on an eternal journey, forever becoming more of the underlying principle of love. And we are fragments or pieces of God and Goddess. And we are becoming more of them through our higher self. Our higher self is a fragment of God and Goddess. And so as we become more of our higher self becomes more of God and Goddess. Isn't that a beautiful thing to know? That we are following on the path of God and Goddess, this path of creation of all that is, and that God and Goddess have given us all of the properties, all of the qualities, and all of the powers of themselves inside of ourselves. And it's our task to recognize that fact and unfold those powers. We can never attain happiness and success without first learning to love ourselves. God and Goddess are totally loving and totally accepting. Humanity are not totally loving, and they are accepting. So they love, we as a human family, we as members of the human family, we love except when you do this or you do that. We love our kids except when you do this or when you do that. We love our spouse except when they do this or when they do that. So we are not totally accepting and totally loving. We are conditionally loving and accepting. One of the rules in the game about love, and one of the important statements about the nature of love, is that unless you can love yourself, you cannot love another. And when you look at the logic of that, it really does ring true, because you will not allow the love in of another person if you don't love yourself. If you don't love yourself, it means that you believe that you are unlovable. And so therefore, if somebody wants to express their love to you, you say, hang on, ding, 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 I'm unlovable. Now what is it that you want? You must want something. You must be trying to manipulate me or control me or dominate me or something. Now we are all in life. We are all in life, and we are on a journey to develop our love for self and our love for God, Goddess, all that is. This is an eternal journey. But in the human condition, we come back into life time after time after time. Eventually we'll go beyond the human condition into higher levels of consciousness, but I'm not going to cover any of that here. We, in each lifetime, have a variety of levels of growth. We start off in the infancy stage, and then our body pushes us on into childhood, takes us through until about 12 years of age, and then we'd like to sit there in our childhood. It's pretty cozy here, not much responsibility, but our body pushes us on into puberty, and between 12 and 20, something like that, we have our puberty, and hormones are going crazy all over the place, and we don't certainly want to stay there. We're either anxious to go back to being a child, or else we're keen to get ahead into our adulthood. But because we go into our adulthood from 20 years of age or so onwards, doesn't mean that we're an adult in our maturity. There's plenty of 45-year-old adolescents around. But eventually, if we work hard at it and learn how to love ourselves and to let love in from others, we go on into our adulthood, and then we go on into our spiritual adulthood. Adulthood is a synergy, a whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. It's a synergy of a free child, a curious adolescent, a young adult, and a spiritual adult. So a synergy is a whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. And to explain that, it's like a flashlight, for example. You've got a cylindrical tube, 2 D-cell batteries, and a cap and a spring, and inside a curved mirror and a little light bulb. And then you put the switch on, and lo and behold, you've got light. The light is a synergy, a whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. So we in the human family are starting off as a free child, and a curious adolescent, a young adult, and a nurturing parent, and out of all of that comes the synergy of the spiritual adult. We in the human family are all imbued with a powerful desire to link up in union with God, Goddess, all that is. This is a powerful urge within all of us. Even if we don't believe in God and Goddess, it's still a powerful urge to become more of who we really are, with eventually the idea of linking up with God, Goddess, all that is, by whatever name that we call that. The only thread to get us there, to that goal, is the thread of self-love. The problem is that you just don't know what love is. At best, you might have got a talk from your parents, your dad saying to you, "Son, soon you're going to go out there into the world and you're going to fall in love, and you better know about VD." Or a talk to the daughter that soon you will be going out into the world and you will be meeting a man and falling in love. And don't give him what he wants or he'll think you're a tramp. And that's a lesson that's palmed off as a lesson on love. You're supposed to learn about love by osmosis. And what did you observe? You observed that love was pain. Love was sacrifice. What do you mean I don't love you? Look how I've sacrificed my whole life for you. Love was domination. Love was manipulation. Love was control. Love was martyrhood. Love was self-denial. Love was being used. Love was being abused. And if you have a belief pattern there in your mind and in your subconscious mind that love means being used, then you're out there in the world and you're programming to meet somebody and to meet somebody who you can love and who can love you in return. And you say to yourself, I don't know what's happening. I'm programming for love, but all I'm getting is these people who want to use me, because that's how you attain love and bring love into your life, because that is what your subconscious mind is guiding you towards, being used. You're taught by science that we're just lowly animals. You're taught by society, don't love yourself, just love others. You're taught by religion, don't love yourself, that's dangerous, just love God. So you go into your young adulthood and you go into your adulthood not knowing what love is and having false understandings of what love is there in your subconscious mind, false attitudes, false beliefs about the nature of love and what love is. So what is love? Well, love is 7 actions, each to produce 7 states of being. So there's 7 things that you can do to express love, each one to create 7 states of being. The first one of the actions is to give of yourself, to produce a sense of security, to give to produce a sense of pleasure, to give to produce honesty and vulnerability, to give to produce trust, to give to produce intimacy and caring, to give to produce a reduced fear of loss, and to give to produce a sense of knowing, to give to get to know that person. The second action is responding, the willingness and the courage to be responsible, to produce security, to produce pleasure, to produce honesty and vulnerability, being responsible in order to produce trust, being responsible in order to produce intimacy and caring, a willingness to be responsible in order to produce a reduced fear of loss, and being responsible and accepting responsibility in order to produce a sense of knowing. The third action is respecting to produce security, respecting that person to produce pleasure, respecting that person to produce honesty and vulnerability, respecting that person to produce trust, respecting that person to produce intimacy and caring, respecting that person to produce a reduced fear of loss, and respecting that person in order to produce a sense of knowing. Now the fourth action and thing to do is to know. And we get to know somebody through two ways, either by producing pain in that person or producing love in that person, by inflicting pain or loving them. That's the ways that we produce a sense of knowing. And many people refuse to break up a marriage or break up a relationship where they've had tremendous pain inflicted upon them by their partner, but they felt that they were known by that person through that pain. So the action of knowing in order to produce those 7 states of being, which I won't repeat every time. The fifth thing to do in order to love is to have the humility to be intimate. Humility doesn't mean to become a rug for someone to walk upon. Humility means to accept that just because it's always gone that way in the past, I'm humble enough to say that we can go a different way next time. It can be better next time. The sixth thing to do in order to produce love and to be loving is to commit. To commit to produce security, to commit to produce pleasure, to commit to that person to produce honesty and vulnerability, to commit to that person to produce trust, to commit to that relationship to produce intimacy and caring, to commit to that person to produce a reduced fear of loss, and to commit to that person to produce a state of knowing. And the last action, the last thing to do, is to care. Caring in order to produce security, in order to produce pleasure. Caring in order to produce honesty and vulnerability. Caring in order to produce trust. Caring for somebody in order to produce intimacy and caring in return. Caring in order to produce a reduced fear of loss. And lastly, expressing care for that person in order to produce a sense of knowing. So they are the 7 things to do in order to produce in each case 7 states of being. And it doesn't mean that each one of those has to produce all of those things, but some of those things. So this is the nature of love and the definition of love given to me by my inner teachers. It is an absolutely beautiful definition of love, and all of us are on the path to learn about love, and the underlying principle of love is so complex and so intricate and so incredible and so wonderful and magnificent that even God and Goddess, with their magnificent state of consciousness and their magnificent state of being and their magnificent state of intelligence, are still becoming more of that underlying principle of love. Isn't that a beautiful truth? To think that God and Goddess are not stagnant in their growth, to think that they are a differentiation of that underlying principle of love, a fragment of that underlying principle of love. They were the first. The goddess was the first differentiation of that underlying principle of love. She was not in her nature to want to do it all alone. So she created God, and together they have created all that is. When did this happen? It happened outside of time and space. So it's always been. It's hard for us to understand infinity. It's hard for us to understand the absolute. It's hard for us to understand even the reality that we're experiencing. It's staggering what future that we all have ahead of us. And it's time for all of us to realise that first we must learn to love ourselves. And the way to learn to love yourself is through knowledge. Knowledge about the nature of reality and your place in that reality. Look, it's time to get stuck into my intensives. There's just so much there to learn. It's easy to say to yourself, well, I don't understand all these things. I don't have all the answers to all the questions that are in my mind. And so therefore, I don't think anybody else does. Well, that's not true. I don't have all the answers. We'll always be growing and reaching and stretching for eternity, always learning more about that underlying principle of love, always learning more about our higher self, always learning more about our future self, always learning more about our soul and our spirit, always learning more about the nature of reality and our place in that reality, always learning more about love, because love is all there is. Everything is a derivative of love. Will and intelligent activity are derivatives of love. Consciousness is a derivative of love. Look, it's a wonderful journey that all of us are on for eternity. As we become more of our higher self, so our higher self becomes more of God and Goddess. And as our higher self becomes more of God and Goddess, they become more of the underlying principle of love. The underlying principle of love could never know itself experientially from that position of all that is. It only stands to reason that for it to be able to understand and to experience its magnificence, it had to experience that magnificence from a position of not magnificent. Otherwise, if there's only magnificence, you can never ever know magnificence. There's got to be some contrast, something that's not magnificent, in order to be able to understand and to experience magnificence. It's a wonderful journey. Look, there's just so much there to learn. I've been learning all these things for 40 years, and goes back into past lifetimes too. I've been a spiritual teacher for many lifetimes, and I'm still learning and growing and reaching and stretching and becoming more of who I really am, more of my higher self. And you are on the same journey. We are all one with the eternal soul, the oversoul, the one soul of God. And each of us have all of the properties and all the qualities and all the powers of the whole inside of ourselves now. Our task is to recognise that fact and unfold those powers. So it's time now for you to do that through knowledge. We do it through two ways. We do it through experience in life, and we do it through an intake of knowledge. An intake of knowledge will never lead to wisdom, and experience itself will never lead to wisdom. It's a combination of the two. Experience and knowledge leads to a synergy of wisdom, a whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. And so this is the journey that we're all on for eternity, to become more of that underlying principle of love, more of our higher self, more of our soul and our spirit. And it's just a wonderful journey to think that we go on forever and ever and ever, always becoming more of our higher self as it becomes more of God and Goddess, as God and Goddess become more of the underlying principle of love. Look, I couldn't set it up better if I tried myself. I know that what I've released here to you is very complex and hard to integrate into your understanding and your belief patterns, but this is what I've found to be the truth about the nature of reality, and my intensives are designed to help you in graded expansions of consciousness to be able to integrate these truths. There's just so much there that I haven't explained to you here and haven't explained in my videos. You need to go into my intensives and get a graded expansion of your consciousness so that it is understandable, so that it is able to be integrated as you go along the path. So have your horoscope done by me if you haven't had it done already. I'm happy to do that free of charge for you. And then when you get your horoscope chart, you will learn about where your ascendant is, and you can then know which video to watch for your rising sign. And also your sun sign. So there's 2 videos for you to watch. And you learn when you have your horoscope done more in depth, horoscope number 2 or horoscope number 3, you learn more in depth about the tests that you've set for yourself in this lifetime, and how you're going with those tests, and how you can pass those tests, and how you can start learning to create your reality more consciously instead of subconsciously the way that you're doing at the moment. So I thank you for your attentiveness here, and I look forward to working further with you should you decide to get your horoscope done or to get into my intensives. Thank you.